We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Within a century or two, Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. These will be the main products of the economy, of the 21st century economy. Not textiles and vehicles and weapons, but bodies and brains and minds.
The World Economic Forum is at the center of a lot of controversy, resent, and conspiracy.
The World Economic Forum are a huge global network of elitists, the super rich, and they have a world agenda which they themselves announced and said that their goal is that we all own nothing and be happy about it.
But the purpose of this video is to highlight clips directly from the WEF's public YouTube channel and bring to light their philosophy, the apparent internal strife and disagreement within their organization.
I'm not as negative about America as some of you in this room.
And to illustrate the reasons why so many people regard them so negatively.
The notion that there's an evil cabal, well, there is the World Economic Forum, and they might count, but fundamentally...
So let's start with understanding what the World Economic Forum actually believes. Here is a summary video from their YouTube channel called What is the Great Reset?
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face.
And that's why so many are calling for a great reset.
A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo masking some nefarious plan for world domination. Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world.
The fundamental belief of the World Economic Forum is that global cooperation is necessary to address the large-scale problems the world faces, such as climate change or the unknown consequences of unregulated artificial intelligence and the possibility of global extermination from man-made bioweapons.
All the three existential challenges we face are global problems that demand global solutions. Whenever any leader says something like, "my country first," we should remind that leader that no nation can prevent nuclear war or stop ecological collapse by itself, and no nation can regulate AI and bioengineering by itself.
Now, on the face of it, this seems like an entirely reasonable set of beliefs. If we want to reduce the amount of environmental toxins in the atmosphere, for example, it makes no sense for a few countries to reduce their own emissions if they just end up outsourcing their polluting industries and activities to other countries who make no attempt to reduce their emissions. In order to address the problem of ecological collapse, all nations must agree to abide by similar rules and cooperative practices. This illustrates the fundamental premise of the ideology of the WEF, known as globalism.
France can't play football against Croatia unless the French and Croatians agree on the same rules for the game. And that's globalism in action. If you like the World Cup, you're already a globalist. Now, hopefully, nations could agree on global rules, not just for football, but also for how to prevent ecological collapse, how to regulate dangerous technologies, and how to reduce global inequality.
Now, I have found that the term globalism is most often associated with conspiracy theories, but as you just saw, it's not a conspiracy to say that elite globalists are attempting to reshape the world in unprecedented ways. That's explicitly what they say that they're attempting to do.
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face.
And that's why so many are calling for a great reset.
The real conspiracy is believing that the globalists of the World Economic Forum have set out to enslave humanity on behalf of their interdimensional psychic alien overlords, for example. It's possible to radically disagree with the globalist agenda not because you think they are evil, but because you think they simply have bad ideas. And in my opinion, these bad ideas are most evident in their views on economic policy.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
And it's for these reasons that the forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism, which would shift businesses away from just profit. Because
if we want to change where the focus of our recovery will go, then we need a new dashboard for the new economy. And that needs to encompass people, planet, prosperity, and institutions.
Now, without getting into the weeds and having to reference my business ethics syllabus from college, stakeholder capitalism is a new philosophy about how corporations should be managed. And I believe there is a very deep issue with the way the World Economic Forum interprets stakeholder capitalism. For example, by all appearances, they believe that it is wrong for countries like the United States to bring manufacturing back to its own shores because it would be bad for developing countries to lose those industries.
Just think, what will happen to developing economies once it is cheaper to produce textiles or cars in California than in Mexico?
Even though as an American I'm quite biased against this perspective, I can still steelman Harari's point by acknowledging that moving certain industries overseas does improve the lives of people in developing countries. However, it's the following admission by Harari that I think delegitimizes so much of what the World Economic Forum has to say.
I mentioned the analogy with the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century. When a few countries dominated and exploited everybody else, it could be much, much worse in the 21st century if you have just a few countries that dominate the new divine powers of AI and biotechnology. And even if you think about the Netherlands and Europe, Europe is hardly in the race. At present, at least with AI, it's really China versus the US. And neither is a very good option. As far as we can tell. I mean, the US, at least until a few years ago, at least said that it wants to be the leader of the world and to work for the benefit of everybody. Now it resigned its role of leader of the world, and it openly says, we don't care about anybody except ourselves. And that's not a leader. You don't follow a leader whose motto is, me first.
So here's the problem. Sure, you can make the reasonable point that a leader who says me first is not a good leader. But you can just as easily make the point that, in the event of an emergency, you need to take care of yourself to even be in a position to help those around you.
And remember to always put your own mask on first before helping others.
The United States cannot effectively address any global threats to humanity if it loses the current global ideological war against authoritarian Chinese communists who repress their own people and seek to destroy everything that the West stands for. And the fact that people like Harari are incapable of seeing this fundamental distinction between the US and China tells you everything you need to know about the philosophical bankruptcy plaguing the World Economic Forum. And the scary thing is, major American business leaders have bought into this Chinese-American cultural relativism as well. Here's Ray Dalio, manager of one of the largest asset management companies in the world, explaining his views on America and China.
A quick question I just want to ask you on China, though, is clearly there's human rights issues. There's questions right now about this Chinese tennis player, Peng Shuai. There have been questions about Jack Ma. How do you think about that piece of it when it relates to investing there?
Well, I can't be an expert in those types of things. What I basically do, and for 50 years I invest all over the world, I look to whatever the rules are. If the government has a policy that I should do a certain thing and so on, but I can't be an expert in all of those particular dynamics of that. I really have no idea. And then I look at the United States and I say, well, what's going on in the United States? And should I not invest in the United States because other things and not our own human rights issues or other things, and I'm not trying to make political comparisons. I'm basically just trying to follow the rules, understand what's going on, and invest.
Now, to be transparent, this anti-American sentiment is not necessarily shared by everyone within the WEF.
I'm not as negative about America as some of you in this room, because I still believe America is the leader of the free world, and I cannot envisage any big global issue being solved without the involvement of the USA. But I know that during the Davos sessions we like to beat Trump. It doesn't help at all. He is President of the United States. I believe that he rightly addresses some of the big issues in terms of the functioning of the UN, NATO, the WTO. So let's make use of the fact that he is President of the United States to change these global organizations.
While that might sound refreshing, it's important to note that this gentleman is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And come winter of 2023, he will be largely responsible for the food shortages that will occur throughout Europe because of his adherence to backwards policies that the World Economic Forum promotes.
Now, we see something similar happening in Europe, particularly in the Netherlands, and we should let everyone know, and you have to listen to this. This is so important. You know, the Netherlands is the world's second biggest exporter of agricultural products. This little tiny postage stamp of a country that was scraped out of the ocean has managed to put itself together so that it can not only feed itself, but so that it's a major agricultural supplier worldwide. We should be so happy with the Dutch farmers that we can hardly stand ourselves. And instead, the courts in particular have mandated that the farmers be scuttled. And the government, their own government, has basically come out and said, well, because you guys pollute so much, we have to crack down on you. And we're sorry, but a lot of you are going to have to go out of business. But, you know, to make an omelet, a few eggs have to be broken. And as the president of Greenpeace in the Netherlands said recently, well, we know we're not going to combat climate change, the climate change emergency, without inconveniencing a few people.
So here is the important reality we need to face. There are global issues that require global cooperation to solve. We should make every reasonable attempt to work with nations, even if they're adversaries, on ways to reduce carbon emissions, overfishing, and prevent human rights abuses. And claiming that the World Economic Forum is just a cabal of evil interdimensional psychic beings is not particularly helpful. But in my opinion, until authoritarian countries like China no longer pose an existential threat to the Enlightenment values that makes Western civilization worth preserving in the first place, Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, and the rest of the World Economic Forum can go ahead and elevate the voices of well-meaning and unsurprisingly misguided children like Greta Thunberg, while their friends in places like China and Iran continue to oppress their people. And as for the World Economic Forum's relatively transhumanist beliefs,
we are about to enter a new era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. Our intelligent design is going to be the new driving force of the evolution of life.
That'll have to be another video. Until then, good luck and Godspeed.